When we did our 7-7B questions on Polaris last week, you had 3 questions, and one of the things that the English teachers, the 7th grade English teachers noticed was that many kids were turning in proof of their answers, reasons for justifying their answers, but we're not quite sure you're understanding like how to use annotations in order to find your correct answer, or answers in this case. So I'm going to very quickly model some thinking. When we're done in the classroom, we will talk about some strategies that you saw me do or you heard me say that might actually help me get the answer correct. So the first thing I'm going to do is read the question. Now, normally you'd be taking this test online. You do have online tools like a highlighter and a strike through, but for this video's sake, I want to show you the question and I want to show you how I would annotate in an online test. In the online test, you also have access to scratch paper. You can have as much scratch paper as you want. You are legally entitled to that scratch paper. You just have to turn it in at the end of the test. So I'm going to just think through and I'm going to make some notes on my scratch paper. I'm going to try to come up with an efficient way to narrow down your answer choices and focus on the questions. And I'm going to start out by focusing on the question first. So here we go. I'm going to read the question. Which 2 phrases from the text demonstrate Mrs. Bates' attitude about Roger stealing money for his shoes? So the very first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to ask myself, what does the question want from me? You, of course, do not have to write this down. What does the question want from me? That's the first question I'm always going to ask myself. Well, I know that the question wants me to provide 2 answers. This is very important. Last year on the STAR test, it was the first year where we had new question types, and one of the question types is called a multi-select. That means it's going to ask you for 2 or more possible answers, not even possible answers, 2 or more correct answers. And you have to choose both of them or all of them in order to get credit. So it's very important to make sure that you're paying attention to the question. What do they want from you? What are you going to give them? You're going to give them 2 answers. My next step is going to be, what is the question asking? I need to make sure I really understand what the question is asking me to do or to think about. And in this case, it's asking me to think about Miss Bates' attitude and I'm just going to abbreviate a couple of things. Miss Bates' attitude toward Roger's stealing. That's what we're asking about. But out of all of those words that I just wrote down, attitude is probably the most important one. That doesn't mean attitude has to be in the answer, but the answer that I'm going to choose has to have something to do with her attitude about the situation. The last thing I'm going to ask myself is, what do I already know about that? This is probably a super important step that a lot of kids don't do. A lot of adults don't do either. And the reason is we see a multiple choice test and we think, well, they've provided answer choices. Why not just use those? The problem is, if you are an overthinker, if you are an anxious test taker, if you are just easily swayed, or you have trouble deciding between 2 or more good choices, then multiple choice questions can actually make it harder for you, because you might talk yourself in or talk yourself out of an answer based on another choice. But if we're talking about answering something with an open-ended response, like we come up with the answer all by ourselves, then now if I see that answer choice, like if I answer the question and I see that answer choice in the 4 choices, I'm much more likely to choose it, and I'm much more likely to actually get the choice right. So what do I already know? What do I already know about Mrs. B's attitude toward Roger stealing? Well, the question didn't really tell me a time period in the story, so I'm going to think about it at the beginning, at the middle, and at the end. Because her attitude about him and about stealing changed over the course of the story. At the beginning of the story, she was really angry at him. Like she choked him and dragged him and beat him up on the street when he tried to steal from her. But in the middle of the story, that's when she started asking, like, well, why have you eaten? And why, do you have anyone at home to wash your face? So in the middle of the story, she started questioning why he's stealing. And at the end of the story, her attitude towards him and towards his stealing was sort of kind. She fed him, she sheltered him, she even admitted that she had done some things too to get things that she wanted but could not afford. In fact, she used empathy and understanding of him to show that they are more alike than different. Now that I know what does the question want from me, 2 answers, what is it asking? It's asking about her attitude towards Roger stealing. What do I know about this? At the beginning, she was angry. In the middle of the story, she was questioning why he was doing this. And by the end, she was kind and showing empathy. I haven't even looked at my multiple choice answers yet. But I already feel like I've kind of answered this question pretty well. But I have to go find my 2 multiple choice answers. So now I'm going to look at each answer choice. This is where I've done the majority of my thinking and my work. Remember, you don't have to write this when you're answering your questions. This part on the top. This is just for me and for the video purposes. But I would think that, like, maybe mapping out, like, what do they want? What are they asking? What do I already know about what they're asking would probably be super helpful. Choice A. When I look at it, Mrs. Jones asked if hunger drove Roger to steal her pocketbook. Well, I'm always going to go back to my question. Does that show her attitude toward him stealing? Well, it mentions Miss Jones. Miss Bates, remember, is also Miss Jones, Miss Luella Bates Washington Jones. She's asking about did hunger make him steal? So it does talk about Miss Bates, Bates Washington Jones. It also talked about Roger, and it talked about stealing. And she is questioning why. So this is looking like a pretty good answer, but I'm really not sure, and I haven't explored very much. And that was at the middle of the story, and I really don't know if they want beginning, middle, or end. So I'm going to put a little question mark, but I'm going to make myself some notes. It mentions Roger. It mentions Mrs. Luella Bates Washington Jones. I'm going to just abbreviate. It also mentions stealing. And remember, I said he's questioning, or she's questioning him. It's a pretty good, now that I'm starting to write down my evidence, I'm starting to see, like, this is a better choice than I thought it was in the original. But I'm still going to go explore B, C, and D, because A, I need 2 answers. Don't forget that part. The woman's purse had everything in it but a hammer and nails. Okay, I feel fairly confident this has nothing to do with his attitude toward Roger stealing. It's true. That's how the author described her purse, but that doesn't have anything to do with her attitude. So you know what? I'm getting rid of this one. I don't see anything that connects to attitude. And you know what? I'm not even going to waste my time or effort disproving it. I feel confident that I can prove my answers. Now, if I can't prove my answers, disproving is a strategy. She takes him home, offers him food, and tells him of a time when she wanted things and couldn't get them. Hold on, wait a minute. So she takes him to her home, offers him food. That seems very kind. And then she talks about how she wanted things and couldn't get them. Remember earlier I said she showed empathy at the end. This is absolutely 100% like I will eat my shoe if this is not one of the answers, right? I'm going to go ahead and mark it. Now, can I stop? No, because remember, I need 2 answers. Choice D, she told him to remember her name, Mrs. Luella Bates Washington Jones. That's true. She did say that in the text. But does it represent, does it show how she feels about him stealing? Now, this is an answer choice that if I was feeling nervous about things and I was really focused on getting a good grade, I might actually talk myself into this choice. I might say, oh, well, we talked about in class how She's got that big long name, Miss Luella Bates Washington Jones. And it sort of represents how powerful she is and how large she is. And maybe like she's trying to intimidate him. So see, I could talk myself into this answer choice, but I don't have to. I already have, even if I put a question mark here, do I have anything of evidence here, or did I had to talk myself into it? When I'm down here and I'm trying to decide between A and D, now I'm looking at which one has the most evidence. And it's A. A has the most evidence. So I'm going to choose A and C. Only now would I actually go to my computer and click in A and C. Remember, this whole part is a strategy to help you get to the right answer choices. If you click your answer choices on the computer and submit your test and then try to do this, that's backwards. That's not helping you get to an answer. It might be helping me figure out why you went wrong, but you're just explaining yourself instead of preparing yourself. This is preparing yourself. You writing a whole paragraph about why you chose something, that's just explaining yourself. Okay? So remember, it's kind of like math. You got to do the work and solve the problem first, then go type in your answer, or then go choose your answer on the computer. Remember, showing your thinking, showing your planning, showing your problem solving, that is worth 25 to 50 points on your assignment. Whether you get the answers right or wrong, I want to see what you're thinking or how you're getting to your answers. If you have any questions, let me know. Remember, when you're doing this, you are making a better plan for yourself to be successful.